everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the most disappointing... I don't think we're calling the episode that, it's unclear, but it's our 2022 film wrap-up. I'm AJ, joined once again by Jeremy and Richard, and we're going to be going through the second half of 2022 and talking about what we thought of every single fucking movie that we saw.
I don't know about you guys, but that week just flew by for me.
And once again, if you check the show notes, there will be time codes for what we talk about and when we talk about it, just so if you want to avoid any spoilers. There won't necessarily be spoilers for every film we talk about, but I also don't want to delineate which ones will have spoilers and which ones don't. So maybe you've seen these films, maybe you haven't and don't care about spoilers, or maybe you are not listening right now and you'll be really mad at us when we spoil the end of give me a movie that we're going to talk
Bullet
about.
Train.
Richard. Bullet Train.
Jumping in on the last week of June, because AJ cut me off before I could we could neatly wrap up one half of the year. The Black
You
Phone.
could have stopped me, and we were going over an hour.
Listen,
you could have just said, "Let me do one more."
You say that, but listen back. Go back to listen to the tape last week. Not a second to jump in there.
No,
I'm not really one to interrupt people.
Yeah.
Like I interrupted you to say that. The Black Phone is a nice sort of self-contained, good fun horror movie. Enjoyed it.
I missed this one. I wanted to see it, but
it's good. Ethan
and I
Hawke's
might
very good
never get around to it.
Yeah, well, one that you might get around to with bit of Oscar buzz is Minions: The Rise of Gru. This movie is great. I had such a good time with this.
What? I don't believe you that you think it's great. I think like having a good time with something can be a separate experience.
Like Minions. I mean, there was the like gentle Minions meme, and people would going into the cinema. And so but I think it's one of those things that like people were actually a little bit surprised by this film, being like, hey, it's actually like not like kind of good, or like it Despicable Me is like. They've got pretty good gags, pretty good visual gags, some good wordplay, and I enjoyed it.
So I am now on the cusp.
Oh no, true.
I'm on the cusp, guys, of having to actually go to these movies for real again.
Wow.
Because my daughter, who is now almost 3.5,
where does the time go?
has seen. She now knows what a minion is. And she's seen them on the like back of buses, and I don't necessarily.
She's like, Dad, that looks fucking hilarious.
Dad, what the fuck is this? Take me to see the yellow guy.
And the other day, she pulled my suit out of the wardrobe. No, but she.
Daddy, take me to the Minions.
So I don't want to hear you say the word "daddy," Richard.
Guess
I
what,
just
Daddy, you're
don't.
going to.
But yeah, I'm glad to hear that
Me
this.
say daddy?
No, I'm glad to hear this this version of Minions is good, because I probably will have to see it at some point. But yeah, I'm just spoilers for future episodes of Most Anticipated, and like a lot of my viewing is probably about in the next couple of years is about to become exclusively animated children's films.
There's been a few good ones this year,
the new honest. Gemma movie is going to become Ivy movie.
Oh, nice. It's a good evolution of that. It's fun. It's also my exposure, just for the record, to Despicable Me as a franchise is I saw the first one in the cinema in year 13. Didn't see 2 and 3. The first Minions movie, I was on a plane to Thailand in 2015, and you could pay I think $10 to unlock all films on the console, or you could pay $8 to unlock a single film. So you just pay the $10. The person in front diagonally from me bought Minions and watched it twice. Hours apart, because it was like a 12-hour flight or whatever. And so watched once the start of the flight, then had a bit of a sleep, and then went back to it again to try and see where she fell asleep.
Even the filmmaker of Minions would not want that for her.
On that same flight, I watched Fant 4 Stick, so I didn't have much better experience. No. Thor: Love and Thunder, we've already done a podcast about this, and Jeremy hasn't seen it, so there's not too much to add other than what's your knowledge of the film, Jeremy?
That it was like Taika Waititi returning to like his own vomit and trying to eat it again.
Yeah, it is really interesting because Chris Hemsworth, sorry, he was doing that show for Disney Plus, one of these like sort of adrenaline shows, and he found out he had the gene for like Alzheimer's. And we'll probably develop it later in life. And he's now sort of said he wants to take a little bit of a step back from acting and kind of do more important things with his life or make more important films. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Thor now, because he, for the first two films, it was like, oh yeah, just a paycheck. This was his introduction to the world, and then he got a bit of clout and was then able to be like, actually, I don't love playing this character anymore. And then was like, I just want to have fun with it. And now it's like, well, does he want to make it important again? Like, and so, yeah, because it seems like, you make the two boring Thor films, you make the two silly ones, and then, yes, if Thor gets more, are they going to be more like old man Thor, like becoming Odin sort of thing?
Mm.
It's interesting because you said, like, maybe we don't need to talk about this because we did a whole podcast on it, but this feels like the clear most disappointing film of 2022, right?
Mm.
Like, surely this is it. This is the, like, and this was something, like, that I didn't know was a critical disappointment until I went to it, So, like, it was a full experience in itself to, like, reconcile with that. And maybe as like, kind of cooled down on Marvel as I am these days anyway, this might take the cake for most disappointing.
Is 2022, like, Taika's worst year ever?
Just his stock's fallen a lot.
Like, he's just really.
He was in Our Flag Means Death, which was very popular.
Yeah, but in terms of like that I feel like that's his stock returning back down to kind of where it was before Thor: Love and Thunder.
And also that was before that was before Thor.
Before Thor 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, when he was like sort of a New Zealand darling of like, quirky, funny things.
I don't think so. I think I've certainly heard shitty stories about who he is as a person.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of flack
like
from the Time Bandits series they're filming in Wellington at the moment.
And also just being a cat. Also just being like I don't know. He's a New Zealander, so I feel like I can't say too much.
The whole thing with him like making fun of the visual effects for that Vanity Fair video and stuff like that. I think plenty of directors have duds and snap back easily. And I think the only reason we're putting this under a larger lens is because it feels closer to home, I guess. But like Jojo Rabbit was his film before Thor: Love and Thunder, and that's probably my favorite. Definitely is my favorite Taika Waititi film. So I don't know. I think Next Goal Wins, his next film, has just as much of a chance of being great as, I don't know. I'm not ready to write him off yet.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think like you say, it's a New Zealand thing as well, bit of tall poppy syndrome. But the it's funny as well for storyline of the year. This was after making a little bit of a name for myself doing reviews on the late news. This was I got offered, do you want to do it on like the primetime news? And they were like, next week Thor: Love and Thunder comes out, so that'll be like a good one to be your first. I got COVID this week, so it was like I went. Jess had got COVID, and then I went into the office and I started feeling sick. And it was like on a Saturday because I was when it was playing, and I was like, "Fuck, I know I have COVID." But anyway, I was then now cursed with like my first address to the nation on primetime was having to be like, "Oh, this Taika movie's not very good." Like, this New Zealand darling, I'm disappointed by. So anyway, The Grey Man came out on Netflix. None of us watched this. I don't know anyone who did.
Now, there's a director you could talk about their stock returning to where they were before.
Yeah, the Russo brothers.
Because the Russo brothers are careening back toward you, me, and Dupree clout after Avengers Endgame. Because they have just directed, 2 movies in a row that allegedly aren't very good that I didn't see. And now they're making more Grey Man films, apparently. So...
Where the Crawdads Sing, Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank, which was the Blazing Samurai, finally came out. Film that I'm very excited.
Came out? Oh my god!
Yeah, the Blazing Samurai was called Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank.
I never even heard about it. I never even saw a poster for it.
One of my top films of the year, and this was one that I wanted to make sure you and specifically Jim had seen. Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
Oh,
what a good film.
oh, just this film exists in an entire different universe of film.
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
What is going on? This movie, I agree with you, because this is a movie I would have never even heard of if it wasn't for Richard. I didn't see it, though, so maybe don't spoil it. I don't know if I will see it.
No, there's nothing... There's literally...
It's so good.
I just literally... There is nothing I could spoil about this movie for you, because... nothing about the enjoyment of this movie has anything to do with the plot.
I thought it is be like, well, yeah, when Mrs. Harris dies at the end.
When she goes to Paris, so to speak.
When Paris goes to her.
Oh.
No, like, this movie is... Like, after we watched it, Gemma was just like, oh, I just really enjoyed that movie. It just... Something nice is always happening.
Yeah.
And that's the entire appeal of this movie. Like the actor who plays is it Leslie Manville?
Yep.
Who plays Mrs. Harris? She is lovely. The character is written as a very lovely, lovely person who is kind and wonderful to everyone. Has lots of gumption. Like if you're, I'm a massive fan of The Holiday, and I always think about like the screenwriter character in that, you know, he talks about how we used to write women with gumption. And, you know, she has lots of gumption. She's, you know, down, you know, she's not in the best position of life, but she's still got a great attitude. And, you know, she's plucky, and you root for her, and you want things to go well, and things generally do go really, really well for her constantly throughout the movie. It's that kind of film that I would say it's from the soap opera school of filmmaking, where there is something new happening every 2 minutes. You know, so like you can never be bored.
Sounds like it's from the action movie school.
Well, I mean, it's a similar kind of discipline, right? Like you just never let the audience stop
believing,
to get bored. Like there's never an opportunity to get bored, because if you don't like this scene, don't worry, wait for 20 seconds and something new will happen, and a new character will come in and do something that's like there's no God in the machine. Like literally there's no machine. It's just God the entire time, just doing new things.
Well, except God's not real. But
this is an atheist film.
Yeah.
Yeah, is this in Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris?
This movie is such a delight. This was probably my biggest surprise for the year, of just like you say, a film I would have never even heard of, but instead I spent a large portion of the year waxing lyrical about this film and telling people to go see it. And I think this is what won me over for the boomers fucking One News audience.
He's nice, that Richard young man.
Yeah, I wore my cable knit sweater in my review. But yeah, no, it's just such a delight of a film.
Like, AJ, if you watch this, within the first 5 minutes of the movie, you'll be like, oh, so then this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen, and you'll be right about all of it, and you won't be disappointed by the end of the movie that you are right about all of it.
Yeah.
This is so funny. We would not be talking about this movie on this podcast if, like, Richard happened to, like, go to a different supermarket one day. You know, like, it's that close to not being in our periphery at all, that, like, a butterfly effect moment could have just wiped it from our comprehension.
I feel like the marketing machine for this movie was such that Richard could not have avoided to go, like, review this, because they knew, like,
being a reviewer, but if I had gone to a supermarket at a different time and not reviewed the first one I did,
yeah,
but yeah, I actually I got offered an interview with Leslie Manville, but I was in the States, and it was one of those things that, you know, if they'd said like, oh, do you want to interview, I don't know, a celebrity that, or like about some movie, that I'm like, hell yes, I would have made it work, but I was just like, oh, hey, I'm traveling, I can't guarantee where I'll be and time zones and all that. And
biggest regret of your year.
Then later on, they were like, hey, the rest of the cast is doing a junket if you want to jump on that. And I was like, you know, I'm always keen for them. So jumped on it. I got sent a screener of the film. And I was just like, oh my God, yeah, I fucking wish I'd made it work to interview Leslie Manville.
She's magical.
Yeah. A film which bizarrely I'm the only person that's seen is Nope. Jordan Peele's film
Okay,
this
no,
year.
I have seen it. Sorry.
Well, AJ, it's not marked on the
Oh,
spreadsheet
wow,
that you've
okay,
seen
well,
it,
that
so
dictates all
you
then,
don't
doesn't
get
it?
to talk about it then, AJ.
You didn't green your little box, so you
Wait,
don't
so
get
did-
to talk about it.
Did you not see this?
Nope.
Oh, dude.
Does that mean you did or no?
Dude, this, for a long time, I thought this would be my number one movie of the year. I thought it was so spectacular. I loved this movie. I think it's interesting, like, comparing it to Get Out, because it's like, they're so hard to compare, so I don't know if I prefer which one I prefer, but like, I feel like I've seen, without spoiling it, I've seen things in Nope that I feel like I've never seen in any other movie before.
That's awesome.
Just this level of spectacle and like, I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler, but like the depiction of the thing in the movie, the monster or whatever you want to call it, is so unique and original and uncanny and terrifying. And I think another thing I really enjoyed about this is like, and maybe this can be my storyline for the episode. Richard's got like becoming a movie reviewer. Jeremy's got like standing on the precipice of having to only watch Minions movies.
And also playing Candy Crush.
Yeah. I saw this movie and I understood it. Is that an arrogant thing to say? Like I got its themes and then went home, read the Wikipedia page for it, and read everything I had already.
So if you knew the Na'vi, you could say, "I see you." To the
I
movie.
see you. It's like I guess what I'm saying is my film
so like
literacy.
if Jordan Peele was like, Jordan Peele's talking about like why he made this film and the black experience in America, and you're like, dude, same.
I get it.
Yeah.
Oh no,
I'm not saying it's.
You don't need to explain it anymore. No, I get it, man.
I'm saying that I think my film literacy is getting better, and I just found
didn't like Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I did not like it. I said I'm gonna watch it again. Fuck up, Richard. Fuck up. Let me have my nice moment. I applauded you when you said that, like when you talked about how one film led to you becoming a reviewer. I've been nothing but supportive, and here I am trying to be like, I enjoyed this movie because I read a lot into it, and you're like, not only are you stupid, but I'm gonna also imply you're fucking racist as well. Incredibly uncalled for.
You're not racist. You're just white knighting it.
This is racist. Saying this is racist.
Continue, AJ. I'm sorry. I'm just having too much fun. You go.
It was just a really fun experience to watch a movie and like know what it was about, and then fuck it, have those analyses confirmed by other critics. It was like, oh cool, I'm not just some idiot that goes to movies and doesn't know what I'm talking about, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I wish I had heard a bit more of this from you, AJ, because I feel like it came out. I heard about it coming out. I didn't know what the release week was, and then I never heard anything else about it all year. So I was just like, apparently it's not that great. But then there was this really big, long gulf in our Facebook Messenger chat, like for like a couple of months, where you guys did not communicate with me, and I was like, have I done something really wrong?
You had.
You had, but we're never going to tell you what it was.
We don't want to bring it up on podcast. No, I loved it. I thought it was so good. If I was to give it any criticism, I would say it's one of those movies which of the new wave of audio mix where I can't really understand every second line of dialogue.
The Nolan mix.
The Nolan mix, and I would like to rewatch it with subtitles. But I mean, when I look back on it, I remember the film fine. So
well, that's also
so
the
who
way
knows?
the guy that plays the cinematographer speaks. It's just like the most insane, like, talks like this. But it's like, it's weird. I loved this film. I remember I saw this in IMAX, and this was the first time I've been really like aware of the thing of like, wow, I'm so glad that thing's over, but it's still in the IMAX aspect ratio, and I'm like, it's not over. It's not over. It's come back because you're still shooting the shot in IMAX. And
it's something else I was meant to be visually blown away by.
Yeah. But no, I this is another one of those films that it's like, even if, and because this is like, I know people that fucking hated this film. And it's like, I can't even be bothered having the discussion to try and convince you, because it's just like, it just didn't work for you. Like, I mean, I got it. I understood all the analysis, like I do with sort of every film.
And I don't really need to like make a big deal about it.
But it was
I'm sorry, AJ, on behalf of Richard.
I completely lost my train of thought.
No, because that was the point you were trying to make. You were trying to get to that joke, and then
I
that
actually
was it.
wasn't. That was just a
when you say something so hurtful that you forget what you were going to say.
I'm truly a broken
overcome
person
with
on the inside.
That it's like, I love that a filmmaker like Jordan Peele can make a film like Get Out and then get this kind of budget to make an original film in IMAX, like this kind of spectacle, this kind of budget. Daniel Kaluuya was saying about how it's like Get Out was the smallest production he's ever been on, and Nope was the biggest. Like, it was the shortest shoot he's ever done to the longest.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's like, even if you, this is one of those ones, even if you don't like it, this is the kind of film that we should be supporting its existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Another film that we should support the existence of is DC League of Super Pets. This is the best film this year in which The Rock plays Black Adam. Like, by a lot, yeah. There's
oh my gosh.
The post-credit scene of this film is it's about the pets of the DC superheroes. Obviously,
which I'm gonna say this movie came out 1 year too early, because if this was next year, I would have definitely seen this.
Yeah, and like, honestly, it's pretty good. Like, I like this a lot more than I thought I would. But yeah, the post-credit scene is, so The Rock voices Krypto the Superdog, Superman's dog, who's the main character of the film. At the end of the film, Anubis, Black Adam's dog, shows up, voiced by The Rock, and then Black Adam shows up, voiced by The Rock. So there's 4 people in the scene, including Superman.
I didn't know this.
Played by John Krasinski, and 3 of the other people in the scene are played by The Rock.
So is it, when you say that it's a Black Adam being played by The Rock, is it like an animated version of it?
Yeah, you don't see his face, but yeah.
I didn't know about that at all. But that's so fucking funny. That's like, what a perfect new piece of the Rock's Black Adam narrative that is. That he's like, this movie that's coming out is gonna be so fucking good that I'm gonna transplant a cameo into this animated movie into it.
Yeah, and also,
God, what a loser.
He's gotten into trouble. I don't know if he's been sued or whatever, but like, there's this articles out about how he like insisted on having a tequila bar at the premiere of this kid's film, and like refused to do as much promotion of the film, and it's like, just again, like, he's another person that I think his star has fallen a lot this year.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Well, I mean, after Jungle Cruise, it was all over for me in The Rock. Yeah.
But one of the things that's really funny about this film is Natasha Lyonne voices a tortoise who gets super speed and becomes the Flash's pet, and her catchphrase is, "I can't see shit," but it's bleeped every time, and it's so fucking funny. Like, just in this kid's movie, and I think she says the F word at one point, and it's blurred and it's bleeped, but it's just it's so out of left field to have a character's catchphrase be, "I can't see shit."
That's hilarious.
Yeah. 13 Lives. This was another one that I was really looking forward to. This is about the Thai cave rescue.
Oh yeah.
And then I found out it was almost 3 hours long. I was like, when am I gonna get around to watching this? Not okay. AJ, you watched this one.
Oh, not okay.
Yeah.
I've watched like most of it. I left for about 20 minutes in the final act, and then came back and saw the end of it, and then promptly and somewhat arrogantly placed it as the worst movie I'd seen that year, even though I didn't see a hefty chunk of it. It's no longer the worst movie I've seen all year. I thought this was terrible. Have you heard of this movie, Jeremy?
What's the plot again?
No, I haven't heard of it at all.
The plot is about a wannabe influencer who pretends to go to Paris to impress people on her social media, but while she's pretending to be in Paris, there is a real-life terrorist attack that happens in Paris, and so then she decides, I'm going to like make fame for myself by being a survivor of a terrorist attack, and it's not like it's not self-aware, like it's aware of what it is. It stars Zoe Deutsch, yeah, and it's, I just found it so like, it's like this edgy ass plot premise that then also wants to be really sincere. Like, there are characters in this movie who would just be offended by the movie that they're in, you know? Like, it's like, what's the point here? And then, spoilers for the ending, the message of the film, of this film about how this woman pretends to be a victim of trauma, the message of the film, gentlemen, is you shouldn't do that.
It's not okay.
It's not okay. That's essentially the message of the film, is that she ends up getting outed and gets cancelled, and the message, the last scene is, I think it's something like she has the opportunity to defend herself or to try and redeem herself, and decides, no, this platform should be given to the people who actually have trauma in their life. And so she just like ends the movie happily staying cancelled. And it's just like, yeah, so the message is, don't fucking do this, you idiot. Like, anyway, we don't need to dwell on it.
Bullet Train. I didn't realize you saw Bullet Train, AJ.
I saw the hell out of Bullet Train, dude.
It's not very good, but it's one of these movies that people are being like, oh, you know, I hadn't heard of it, and it's actually pretty fun. It's like, yeah, like if you haven't heard of it and you just stumble across it, yeah, it's kind of fun. But it's like, if you actually pay to go see it in the cinema, it's like, this is the bare minimum a movie should be.
I don't know, because I gave it 3.5 stars.
I think I did
but
too.
It was kind of a begrudging 3.5 stars. It's one of those things. Like, sometimes I'll give something a certain rating because it's like, when I break it down to its parts, its components, I'm like, yeah, there's 3.5 stars worth here, but it's maybe just not, it's not like it gelled together. But I'd heard, like, I saw the trailer for this and thought it looked like this fun, original movie coming out. And I was like, yeah, cool. And then heard it was really bad. And I was like, what the hell? And then I went to see it, and I don't know, I had a pretty good time with it, and then went home and read some Letterboxd reviews, and it was just really divided. And it's a really, like, unassuming movie to be so divided. I think this is my review for it that I wrote. I wrote something like, this has the vibe of the type of movie I would get from the warehouse bargain bin in like 2009, and I'd watch it on my CRT TV in my bedroom. And like, it would be like, I own a copy of Bullet Train on TV.
And it would have like Dolph Lundgren, but like in the early 2000s in it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to have anyone specific in it. It's more
no,
like,
but like, yeah, or like Casper Van Dien would be like the main star.
Right. I mean, it could still be Brad Pitt, to be honest, because he's been around for a while. But I don't like. It's just sort of like this movie that I think would have appealed to me a lot more when I was a teenager, when I was like oblivious to critical reception of things.
It was just like, yeah, it's fine. There's not much to say about it. I think like this was one that was hard to review. Like on the TV, it was like, yeah, you might have a good time. It's yeah.
compelling
and rich stuff. Whereabouts are we up to? Well, a couple of movies that I just want to quickly mention for any of our international listeners that might be a little bit wondering about this. There's the non-binary slasher movie They/Them came out, which is apparently a waste of a great title. But Bodies, X and Pearl didn't come out in New Zealand, so they weren't like, you know, any of us obviously could have seeked them out if we wanted to, but these are 3 films that I think dominated the horror conversation a lot this year, but they were just never really accessible to us.
My flat watched Bodies without me because I think I was doing a podcast when I watched it. But like X and Pearl really feel like
well, they were shot in New Zealand. It's like,
yeah, it's weird they didn't come out here. They really feel like 2 massive blind spots for me though. Like I don't even have any necessarily desire to see them, but like the Letterboxd year in review thing just happened, and like Pearl is all over it, you know, and it's like, God, I don't even like and because there's a third one coming out.
Yeah,
because X and Pearl are a duology that came out in the same year, interestingly, and because there's a third part coming out, my like alarm bells are going off, and I'm like, do not watch this because you'll get it for the podcast in like 2 weeks.
the thing about the one thing I will say just on these movies, that directed by Ty West, but spelled T-I, and a lot of people, he posted like his top 10 films of all time, and everyone was real mad that they were just like super basic films. It was like 2001: A Space Odyssey, and like the films that are just generally at the top of greatest films of all time list. When that came out, I was so shocked to learn that he was a guy. Like, I just assumed, oh, you've got these like people like Ty West can do no wrong, these films are amazing. I was like, oh, it's a woman director, that's why. But no, good to see that people can still get behind a male filmmaker in 2022.
What the fuck are you talking about, Richard?
No,
what
like
strange take to have.
But it's like
turns out men are good, actually.
Well, it's just like
finally a win for the...
Well, there was the joke, obviously, but it's like just the
Thank
response.
You for explaining the joke.
Yeah, you made me. But just like the fan base that the rabid fan base that this got, and the people who loved it, I don't know. I was just shocked to learn that it was for a guy.
Well, I mean, Mia Goth co-wrote a lot of it, I think.
Yeah, but like I think it was the duo of those two. I didn't. I guess I did assume the gender. Anywho, what else?
Is Mia Goth a goth?
3 movies that only you saw
surname.
here, AJ.
Okay.
None of us saw 3,000 Years of Longing. I wanted to, but I just heard it wasn't very good.
Yeah, yeah, same. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that the first movie from George Miller, who made like one of the most defining movies of the last 10 years, finally came out with another movie, and its response ranged from didn't see it to it was okay. That's disappointing.
So 3 movies here you've got to talk about, AJ. Robert Zemeckis' Pinocchio, Barbarian, and Clerks 3.
Okay, let's go. Robert Zemeckis' Pinocchio. I don't think I hated it as much as the world did, but it's not very good. I have barely anything to say about it other than Tom Hanks.
The fish was sexy.
The fish was sexy. They translated the sexy fish to real life, and I really appreciated that. I think I wanted to prepare for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio by watching this one ahead of it. But yeah, don't waste your time on it. It's not very good. Though it was written by our friend Chris Weitz. What was the next one? Barbarian. Great film. You guys should watch Barbarian. Jeremy, you would like Barbarian, I think.
What's it about?
It's a horror movie about a woman who... No?
Horror movie? No. I know that like horror movies is now like the genre that everyone watches. I don't watch horror movies.
Okay.
But I mean, I'll watch clever ones. Like I don't know. I still wanted to call things thrillers. I would say that Get Out is a thriller, not a horror.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll watch thrillers. I don't like horror movies that are just like...
You'd be pushing pretty far to call this one just a thriller and not a horror.
Okay.
It's the log line is a woman is going to Detroit for a job interview, and she gets to her Airbnb in the middle of the night only to discover that it's been double booked by Bill Skarsgård, and that's where we start the film. I think there are a couple of I had a couple of issues with the ending, but everything else in it is really just sublimely unfolded, and it feels like a really confidently told little horror movie. It's got what's his name? Justin Long in it, and he plays a character named AJ. And when they said they called him AJ in the film, I was like, oh, fun. And then it's immediately revealed that he's like a rapist. It's like that's you learn within meeting the character, you learn his name's AJ and that he's being accused of rape. But it's just because of that, it's like this really like finger on the pulse kind of film. And there's a lot of interesting kind of messages and stuff. Really liked Barbarian. It's really good.
Clerks 3 is your next one.
Oh my god. This is an embarrassing film. This is because Kevin Smith is so hit or miss with me, and was someone who I really resonated with when I was like growing out of my teens, and then as I've got older, I don't know if he's made worse films or I'm not as into them. This film, man, is like It's so embarrassing because it's so personal and it's so like transparently based on experiences that Kevin Smith has had, and like it's like because a couple of years back he survived a heart attack and it basically like kickstarted him into trying to embrace life more, and that's the premise of Clerks 3. And what I think is really interesting about it is because it's basically the Clerks characters making Clerks the movie, because one of them has a heart attack and decides they want to make a movie based on their life.
What
and
a
I think
nightmare.
I think it's a great idea for especially a Kevin Smith film. But one really interesting kind of problem with it is that the two actors, I can't remember their names, but the two clerks in Clerks, they don't do a lot of acting outside of the Clerks movies. And as such, I don't think they are very experienced, and I don't think they deliver very natural performances. I think they sound quite amateur in their line deliveries and stuff like that. But they are not the only people in the movie. And nested in this movie is like Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith himself as Jay and Silent Bob. And like Silent Bob has a moment in every Silent Bob movie where he starts talking. He'll do say a couple of sentences, and when he says one or two sentences in this movie in one scene, and it is so jarring because Kevin Smith, for all his faults as a director, is like a perfectly good actor, and so you've been listening to these like really tired line deliveries from the two main characters, which feel like immature and childish and really inexperienced, and then Silent Bob finally speaks, and it's like, oh my god, this is a professional movie with a budget, because Kevin Smith knows how to do that. And Rosario Dawson, who is in Clerks 2 and has a small scene in this as well, she was the main character's love interest in Clerks 2 and briefly shows up in this, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, Rosario Dawson looks this is so mean, looks 10 times better than the dude playing the main character. And in the sense that like this is a woman who took her job as an actor very seriously and continued to invest and like build herself around being a front-facing actor. And this is a guy who's done Clerks 2, and now Clerks 3, who's just a normal guy. And it's just really funny to think of them as a couple, because
So is it the Freddie Prinze Jr. Sarah Michelle Gellar problem?
They're both in this
reversed.
movie.
Yeah,
What?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they both have cameos in this film.
Oh, that's sorry. You ended up talking about that when we talked.
Yeah, and so that, again, because she can act, she's in like fucking Star Wars and shit now, like she can act, and again, it's a very jarring scene, and I found it so hard to get through, and the ending is like not the ending I think fits the franchise, and in the credits, Kevin Smith talks directly to the audience and tells you a little story about what it was like making the film, and I was like, God, I wish this was better. Because if you saw the greatest movie ever, imagine if you saw a really personal, really effective film, and then the director, who's quite a social media figure, like starts talking in the credits, you'd be like, oh, this is classic Kevin Smith, this is great. But it's like you've just seen like what I thought was quite a dumpster fire of a failure of a film, and then he comes in to be like, thanks so much everybody for sticking with the Clerks gang over all these years. Fun fact, the supermarket in which we shot in was the real super, and it's like it's like,
and you're like I wish I hadn't stuck with the Clerks gang all these
genuinely I really liked Clerks. I quite liked Clerks too. I don't know if I would still like it as much if I watched it as an adult, but I liked it, and then Clerks 3 just feels
No. See how they run? None of us saw how they run. Blonde seemed like just
see how they run?
Yeah.
I did see that.
Oh, well, you didn't mark it green.
I totally forgot that that's what the movie was called. I barely remember anything about it.
Nice.
It was it's the story of the mousetrap, right? Like it's a
You're
murder
mystery. Seen it, dude. How would we know?
It's Saoirse Ronan and
Sam Rockwell.
Sam
Moon.
Rockwell.
Who's the
Sam
Moon guy?
Rockwell.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell. Yeah. Yeah. It just really felt like all of these sorts of murder mystery type movies with like big sort of look who's in this movie casts are being made now in the slipstream of Knives Out, and to a lesser extent, I think the sort of rebirth of the Agatha Christie, the Hercule Poirot. and they're all trying to do it, and it's just a continual reminder of like how amazing Rian Johnson is.
It's Ryan.
Is it Ryan?
Yeah.
I am. Just amazing how amazing Rian Johnson is at making it fresh and cool and fun and new. That see how they run. It's just really like I barely remembered I even saw it, let alone. And I was quite interested in seeing it because when I was in London, it was everywhere. Like they obviously wanted every single person in London to watch it because it was like every billboard was like, see how they run, because it's based on a murder that's set on the set of The Mousetrap, which is the longest running play in history. It's been playing on the West End in London since the 1950s. And yeah, it just didn't hit.
Damn.
I'm really annoyed that slipstream has absolutely entered my vocabulary, but I'll never be able to use it around you guys, because as soon as I do, and I'll probably do it by accident, just in the heat of the moment, and then there'll be a pause and someone will say, you got that from Jeremy. There's no way to organically use the word slipstream in my vocabulary now.
Blonde seemed like just a mean-spirited film and didn't want to watch it, and no Oscar buzz, so yeah. And Do Revenge was apparently a fun Netflix film, but I didn't watch it. Moonage Daydream, this was the David Bowie, the first film to be made with the blessing of David Bowie's estate. Really interesting. If you're into David Bowie, you'll really enjoy it. It's more akin to like a concert film than like a life documentary or anything like that. It's again, it's like a montage sort of thing. But yeah, no, really visually spectacular film. And if it's playing in a town near you on the big screen, I'd recommend going to it. One that you haven't marked as watched, but I know you have watched in the last like 24 hours. Don't Worry, Darling. It's a bad film.
Yeah. So this was like, you know, in a lot of ways, this was the movie of the year, right? Like from a certain point of view.
It was the PR story of the year.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, how great would it have been if it had been a good movie? You know, like after
all that really
that,
good PR wasted on the movie that it was about.
Yeah, and I watched it. Have you seen it, Jeremy?
No, I actually did not. I mean, all of the Harry Styles spitting into the lap of Chris Pine.
I don't think that happened.
It didn't actually happen, but that was the story. Didn't entice me to see it. Although when I saw it on the list, I was like, "Ooh, Don't Worry, Darling. Maybe I should watch it just for the meme of it all." But no, I didn't.
That's. I'm glad you brought that up, because this is the first time in a long time that there's been a movie with a negative reception that I've been like, I should probably see this. Like,
just to have an opinion about it.
Well, because usually that's reserved for like the best movies of the year, you know?
Yeah, your Top Gun Mavericks.
Your Top Gun Mavericks. Your
Paddleton's.
Another one I did.
DC League of Super Pets.
DC League of Super Pets. But this is just like one where it's like, I have to see it because we got to talk about it, because it's Don't Worry, Darling. And what annoyed me about this film. Do you mind spoilers, Jeremy? Or you
have to spoil this.
I cannot be spoiled in this movie.
Right. It is the most expected. Like, okay, here's a good experiment. If you haven't seen it, here's the setup, and I want you to guess what the twist is. Okay. Right? Okay, so we're in the 1950s in this little suburb, and it's about
Victory.
A little suburb called Victory, and the men go to work on like what sounds like a
mysterious project.
Yeah, it sounds like the Manhattan Project sort of thing, and the Stepford Wivesian wives stay home and cook and clean and then have oral sex with their husbands when they come home. And they
receive oral sex is important.
That's true. But Jeremy, something is off about this quaint little town. What do you think happens? Take a couple of guesses. Because it's from the big book of movie twists, and it won't be that hard to guess.
Is it that... Oh, God. Now I'm trying to be more clever than I think I should be.
You don't need to be.
What's your immediate reaction? What are you thinking?
Oh God, I'm immediately thinking that it's like a fake town that's like they're actually in Russia.
They're not in Russia, but it's not real. It's a simulation.
They're in the modern day, and during the day.
So it's the village.
Well, no. So the idea is that during the day, it's like a computer simulation. Florence Pugh in the real world is a nurse who's gone missing, and she is strapped to a bed with her eyes pried open, a la Clockwork Orange and having like being scanned like a VR sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Harry Styles comes home when he goes to work. That's actually him waking up in the real world to go make enough money to maintain them staying in this thing.
And so she shouldn't worry,
darling.
It's just it was the most expected, like, as soon as it starts, it's like, it's either this is actually set in modern day, or this isn't real. It's like a simulation. Yeah. My immediate thoughts, and then it was both. So.
Yeah. I would just so much rather it had been they were working on something mysterious. And there's so many just like, it's one of those movies that as soon as you think about it for a few seconds, everything falls apart. Like, there's so many things in it that are like, also, so within like one of the previous movies you mentioned, AJ, but it's like within 5-10 minutes of the film, it's like, oh, something's not right. And then they just continue to be like, yeah, remember, something's not right. You're not given more information each time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's like you're told something's wrong. You're not.
It's like, be worried, and then they tell you be worried again.
If you're paying attention in the background, you might have noticed this, and now Florence Pugh's starting to notice it. Oh, and then that's a really big clue. It is like you were given the same level of clue for like an hour and a half of the film.
Yeah.
And so it's not a mystery unfolding.
Yeah. It's like the Truman Show as well. Like, that's another comparison. It's Stepford Wives meets The Matrix meets the Truman Show meets Black Mirror, basically.
And I remember, like, Olivia Wilde, before the film came out, was like, men don't come in this film. Like, the ladies get the sex. And it's like, when you see the film, that is such a weird thing to advertise about the film.
Yeah, and it's like, it's such a weird, like, oh, this will be the thing that'll get people to come and see my movie.
And also, but like, you know, we don't need to go into all the behind-the-scenes drama, but there was, like, someone asked Florence Pugh about, like, the sex scene in the trailer with Harry Styles, and she was like, it's fucked that this movie's been reduced to that. Like, you're starring a film with Harry Styles and people just ask you these stupid fucking questions. And it's like, yeah, fair enough, 'cause she obviously hated doing this film, judging by all the behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, like the ending that it's like she was this like high paid nurse, a very busy schedule, and then she just disappears. And then also when she finally gets out at the end, she's now strapped to a bed with her eyes pried open next to a dead Harry Styles. Because this is the other thing, if a man dies in the simulation, they die in real life. If a woman dies in the simulation, they get out. Now, this was made by Chris Pine. Why would he program that? Why would he program that?
Was it specifically that, or is it anyone who dies? I thought it was anyone who dies.
No,
dies in real life.
The woman who kills herself earlier in the film gets out. But like, because they say the men die in this. Men who die.
That's a good point. I didn't put those pieces together, but it's really funny. Like, there is a line in this movie that is so close to, if you die in the game, you die in real life, and it's delivered by the film's director, Olivia Wilde.
And also, there's like at the end when like Gemma Chan's character, who's Chris Pine's husband, and he's the mastermind behind everything. Sorry, your wife. And like, don't get me wrong, Chris Pine, fantastic in this film. So was Florence Pugh.
I didn't think he was. I thought he was average.
It's a fun character, and he plays it well. But and we'll get to Harry Styles in a second. But at the end of the film, she stabs him, and it's like, it's my turn now, and it's like,
it doesn't mean anything.
For what? Like, what have you? You haven't wanted this or anything? But on Harry Styles, I was he's set up to fail in the film. It was mean of Olivia Wilde to cast him. Like, it requires these. I think he's great in Dunkirk. The role doesn't require like an insane amount from him. But in Don't Worry, Darling, it requires pages and pages of dialogue. It requires big dramatic outbursts, and the script has also been rewritten to justify the fact that he's British. There's like lines in the film where that add nothing else other than to be like, oh, because they do it different in the UK.
Oh, because Sandy's just moved here from Australia.
Yeah. And but it's shown that like because when we see him in the real world, and credit to the makeup department, he looks disgusting in the real world. There's like, he's sort of getting to choose his perfect life, and he chooses, oh, I'll be British for my perfect life. So he has an American accent, because there was a lot of talk about like,
I didn't understand why they would do that. Just make him British in real life.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk of like, what is the accent when the clips were coming out, and it's like, oh, he's doing an American accent in the real world, and he's British in the simulation. But it's such a stupid movie, and I liked. Like, a lot of people will talk about as well that it's like, it's shot quite well, or it's shot quite like interestingly. There's like 5 shots in this movie, and they're just those repeated. And it's like there's clever shots. They're well done, and the camera is used in interesting ways. But every interesting shot is just
Repeated.
the same one. It's like, I can't think of a specific example.
They developed a technique and just used it over and over.
Yeah, so they're like a cool overhead shot, and you're like, oh, that's cool. But then your only other cool shots are also overhead shots.
Yeah.
I almost feel sorry for Harry Styles in the film, that like the amount of shit he got, because it's like it just shouldn't have been him. Apparently it was originally
Shia LaBeouf.
Well, it was originally Shia LaBeouf, but apparently Olivia Wilde was also playing Florence Pugh's character, but then she decided she wanted a younger couple.
Cool. All right, I believe you. I will not watch it.
Florence Pugh is incredible in it, though. I thought she was so good in it, and it's just this. What a depressing. I don't know. Like, if this had been good, there would have been a like.
Yeah.
It was all worth it kind of feel to it, But it's what I thought watching it was like. Well, I know what movies and shows Olivia Wilde really likes because it just feels like a culmination.
She just likes Black Mirror.
yeah, exactly. It just feels like a culmination of a bunch of stuff I've seen better, and it's weird. It's one of those. It's a movie that makes you realize you've been watching movies like this for years because it's the first one that makes you go like, oh god, another one of these, because like you don't realize how many it was all a simulation, or it's actually set in real life, or there's some kind of Black Mirror-ian twist in it. You don't realize how many times you've seen this until you watch Don't Worry Darling, and you're like, fuck.
I think I described it in the review as like, at its best, it's an alright episode of Black Mirror. At its worst, it's a bad episode of Black Mirror.
Cool. All right, I believe you. I won't watch it.
Okay.
Please stop talking about it.
Well, it's a while before there's a movie you've seen, Jeremy, so strap on. Smile. I call this is one I hyped up to hurt Age's feelings as well.
Oh, this was the worst thing you've done, I think. I think this might be a good run for most disappointing film of the year. But unlike Thor: Love and Thunder, I feel like I'm the only person who doesn't like this movie. And I'll elaborate, I guess.
Let's after these messages.
Let's talk about how you hyped this up. Richard, you were like, dude, this is the scariest fucking movie I've ever seen. And you gave it like...
So, because we only spoke about this over text. So I said, dude, this is the fucking scariest movie I've ever seen. That was how I was writing.
I watched your review, and in your review, you're like, Smile is probably the scariest movie I've ever seen.
Well, that's just my news voice.
That's the bullshit I spin to the boomers who watch the news.
Not only did I not think this was particularly scary, I also think it's one of like this is ripe for a video essay. If I still made video essays, this would be such a good conversation, because we are living in this age of elevated horrors. That seems to be the prevailing term for this type of movie. I preferred metaphora or social thriller, but it seems like elevated horror that's what Scream 2022 called it. So that's, I guess, what we're calling it. Of these like intelligently written horrors with a message behind them and yada yada yada, and it's great stuff. But with this genre of film comes a responsibility that I think some directors are shirking. And that responsibility is, if you're going to make your central monster, whatever phenomenon, if you're going to make that a metaphor for something, then the ending of the film needs to have you saying something about whatever that metaphor...
Have the right message, yeah.
Yeah, the right message.
Or how to deal with it or something.
Yep. So spoilers for Smile, and spoilers as well for Lights Out, a movie we've talked about a couple of times on the podcast. Lights Out is a movie where the monster, which only appears in the dark, is clearly a metaphor for like grief and depression, and the way it's dealt with in the end is the character, the mother, who is suffering the most from grief and depression, kills herself to get rid of the monster. Right? And it's like someone
the message
else.
Of the story is that if
you're a burden on your family,
it's your burden on your family.
Yeah.
I'm silent because my mouth is just agape. Like,
so that's Lights Out, not Smile.
Right.
But it really feels like someone else wrote the end of Lights Out. It feels like someone set it up.
Someone didn't get the metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. Which is bananas that you could set up a metaphor and then not understand it. And similarly, Smile, so it's about, what's it like?
It's about abuse. The cycle of abuse.
Yeah, and you see the smiling demon and it comes after you. And it's about, as you say, the cycle of abuse. And so when a movie is about the cycle of abuse, your message responsibly should be in the end, there is a way out of this. That's what I personally...
There's a way to break it, yeah.
There's a way to break it, right? And at the end of this movie, you think she escapes the cycle of abuse, and then the final scene is the boyfriend or whoever turns up, and now she's infected with the smile. She lights a match. Cut to black, she'd failed. And so the message of Smile is, there is no way. Sorry, everyone, if you're suffering from PTSD, if you've had abuse in your life, if you have these things that hang over you and make you depressed and anxious, sorry, there's nothing you can do about it.
Someone else will just turn up in your life and it'll all happen
you'll
over
abuse
again.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an evil, irresponsible message. And I'm so surprised to see how warm of a reception this film got with such a like what's it called? Like fumbled ending.
I will sound smart. So this looks like it's Truth or Dare. It looks like the fun, dumb horror movie you can put on, laugh with your friends. It takes itself very seriously, and I still think this is, like, I stand behind, this is the scariest movie I've ever seen.
I think you need to see scarier movies.
That's not me overhyping it. Like, it's I mean that's literally just a true statement about myself. I think this film uses jump scares more effectively than I've ever seen in a film. Like, jump scares in films you usually watch and you go, oh, sure, it's a fuck you movie. Whereas this one, I would get a jump scare and I would be, for like a minute afterwards, but still be reeling from it because they weren't fake outs. They were in genuinely unexpected places, and it was actually something terrifying. And so it was that thing of like, I've gone on the record saying I hate jump scares, but it's like, when they're the best ones, I kind of can't hate them. And yeah, it was just like, when I went into this, because I watched this in the cinema, and it was like 1 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon or whatever, and I just walked down from work, went to the cinema, and I walked in expecting a dumb movie to laugh at, and then I ended up seeing the scariest movie I've ever seen. And so, yeah. But anyway, I'm glad I hurt your feelings, AJ.
That's what it's all about, baby.
Bros,
Fuck you.
I'm surprised you guys didn't see Bros. Bros was really fun. Like,
yeah, I should have seen
the audience turned against it because it's a gay movie, and Billy Eichner made some.
Well, no, yeah, the audience turned against it because of Billy Eichner's like overly aggressive,
audience,
everyone hates it. Everyone's not going to see it because they're homophobes, and people are just like, well, maybe we just haven't found time to go see your movie because no one's got time to see movies.
Billy,
anymore.
I've actually been very busy. But it's also just that like it is kind of a bummer that like a studio made a rom-com in 2022 and it was a massive bomb. And the thing I kind of liked about Bros is that while the sort of the central thesis of the film is that love is not like, because it's sort of a meta movie where the character is at the start is asked to write a rom-com, and they're like, just make it gay, love is love, like it's all the same. And the whole point is, it's like, it's not, love is not love, it's gay relationships are very different. And so he but the overarching plot, the beats are the same, but all the details are completely different. And so I kind of like that it is still this kind of accessible thing for it's homophobic audiences, but it's
playing in the same sandbox, but it's being very specific about like, here's how it's different though.
Yeah, it's different.
But so you recognize a lot of it, but yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fucking hilarious. Lots of great gags, and I really enjoyed it.
Nice. I do want to see it.
So I'm surprised Hocus Pocus 2 feels like a Jeremy film. I'm surprised you didn't watch that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I watched Hocus Pocus 1 this year.
I had no like great love or affinity with Hocus Pocus 1, so I think I saw it like once in the early 2000s, but it just didn't.
It feels
really...
like it's written into your DNA, bro.
Oh yeah,
like
totally.
It feels
if you
like
said Hocus Pocus was the most important film to the DNA of Jeremy Varga, I'd be like, yeah, that tracks.
No, thank you.
So a film that I avoided, Amsterdam, but you watched that recently. You took the bullet for us.
Yeah, well, I watched it. I watched the first like probably 25 minutes, and then essentially Taylor Swift got like randomly like
shoved under a moving car.
shoved under a moving car in like quite a like. It was done very well. Like it was pretty seamless in the way the camera like literally followed her as she got shoved under a moving car, and it was in the mid-sentence, and it just made me laugh. And then I just realized in the minutes after that happened, I was like, that's definitely going to be the most entertaining and enjoyable thing that happens in this movie. I'm going to turn it off now. Yeah. And I turned it off. And then I went and read all the reviews, and I was like, cool, I was right.
Yeah, I'm glad this bombed.
Yeah,
I don't like David O. Russell's movies, or as a person, and so I'm glad no one saw it. Hellraiser, this is ripe for a film franchise follow-ups at some point. Halloween's Ends was ripe for a film franchise follow-ups. That's why we did it. We both kind of liked it. It's
but the
very
world
divisive
didn't.
film. Yeah, but yeah, in any sort of. It's a very strange film. It's similar to Jurassic World Dominion, but not as bad. Where you're like, why'd you come up with this as the plot for your finale? Like, yeah, strange. We're All Quiet on the Western Front. This is one of those ones vying for the last sort of spot on the Oscar nominations. So we'll see.
My dad saw it and he spoiled the ending for me.
Wow. Black Adam, second best movie where The Rock plays Black Adam this year. This movie's so bad.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what hasn't already been said about Black Adam, but it's just like the main thing about it is it's like 15 years too late.
Wow.
It's very much like a Ghost Rider kind of thing. It's like those sort of before we really figured out what superheroes movies were, but we wanted to cash it on Spider-Man.
Yeah. And it's I think what's worse is that it's because Morbius was that as well, but Black Adam is so confident. Black Adam is so confident in how good it thinks it is that it makes it even less palatable.
It carries the id of The Rock.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I here's another video essay I would write if I was still doing video essays, which is, what does he want? What does The Rock want? Like, he has championed Black Adam since 2007 or whenever he was cast in it, right? And he hyped it up so much, like, oh, this is the hierarchy of power is about to change, blah blah blah. And then this movie comes out and The Rock is just playing The Rock. And it's like, why? What about this character did you feel was so special and so new and so fresh that, like, you had to champion this movie? Because it's just him doing him again, and there's no interest to
it's also
it.
just, like, it's him, like, because, I mean, people go see the Rock movies because you're going to watch this guy have fun. He is not having fun in this movie.
No.
Like, it doesn't even seem like he enjoyed making it. He's so serious. It's boring.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that The Rock needs to find his Christopher McQuarrie? Like, it's interesting to me that, like, Tom Cruise has found this director that just gets him and totally gets the way he wants to make movies and elevates him as well. And it's like, I just feel like The Rock is playing around in too many different properties without bringing his own, like, person who makes him look good.
I would say he's kind of got that in, I believe his name is Rawson Marshall Thurber, who made, I'm just going to
Was it the person who made CIA? Because he should totally bring the person who made CIA with him.
No, he made...
Central Intelligence, sorry.
Yeah, well, Central Intelligence. Skyscraper, and he actually also did Red Notice, I didn't realize. I think he also did Rampage?
Right. Rampage came out the same year as Skyscrapers.
Oh, no, he didn't do that. Who made Rampage? Because maybe I'm thinking of the guy who did Rampage.
He either needs to find his Christopher McQuarrie, or he needs to find himself. He needs to be humbled, I think, because he refuses to be.
Well, maybe maybe the reception to Black Adam is the thing that's going to do it.
But
and also getting kicked out of the DCU.
Yeah, true. Well. But the reception to Black Adam, he just denied. Like, he tweeted the watery eye emoji and was like, my reaction when the fans tell me how much Black Adam means to them. It's like, what are you talking about?
Well,
Who
he
are
also
these people?
like said about how it outgrossed Captain America, like the first one.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not a fair comparison.
It's not a fair comparison at all.
He's gone full Trump.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah, totally. And it's like, what corners of the internet are you degrading yourself into so that you can find an overwhelming positive response to this movie?
His DMs. And I think you were the one who told me about this or tweeted it, like how the promo for this film was like they literally took a review from someone's tweet. Like they just took a tweet and put it on the billboards for this film. It's just like, as if it was a film reviewer who was like saying, "This is awesome."
What a move! What a move!
Yeah. Well, it's like it's very much like The Rock being like, "I'm the man of the people. All I care about is And it's funny because it's like it's full Vin Diesel territory, right?
Yeah, his star has fallen so much, I think, and I don't think he's gonna keep. I don't think he's going to be able to keep doing this.
Well, I think that it's becoming now like the general public is coming around to the fact that it's like this dude's just a weenie. Like that it's not like his reaction to all these things.
Well,
it's like he just has really thin skin.
Yeah, and I think there was a certain type of coolness around like the sort of 2013 to 17 kind of era that was very like it was the male allegory to like the Jennifer Lawrence cool girl kind of thing, and like it was the Dan Blazerian kind of like I'm a man, whoa but I've also got a sense of humor, but I'm awesome.
Like Chris Pratt as well.
Yeah. And I just think that like everyone's a bit tired of it and it doesn't translate. And so now it's like, what do you do with that?
Yeah. The other guy I was thinking of is Brad Payton, who directed Journey to the Mysterious Island, San Andreas, and Rampage.
Cool.
So I was thinking today about John Cena and what works about John Cena as an actor, right? And I think part of it is like an ego death. And you could say similar things about Dave Bautista, but he's sort of gone in a different direction.
Dave Bautista's playing a different game.
Yeah.
John Cena's playing the same game as The Rock did, I would say.
Yeah. But John Cena is in movies where he looks ridiculous and silly. And
The Rock would never have done Trainwreck.
Yeah. And he would
like The Rock never plays second fiddle to anyone, and John Cena did Trainwreck, where he is a supporting character to
Amy Schumer.
Yeah, and like even I would even say Peacemaker is like a degrading role in some points for John Cena. And I think that's like I want to see The Rock be ridiculous on purpose because that's what makes a good acting. And weirdly, it's what makes a good wrestler. So you'd think he would have this complex, right?
But he did that.
No,
the thing is, he did that early in his career,
right.
And now
like
he
Tooth
thinks
Fairy.
he's past it. He's like, I've done my Tooth Fairy, and
No, but it's not the Tooth Fairy aspect of it. It's the understanding that in a wrestling match for the storylines, sometimes you need to lose. Sometimes
There's
you're
a bit
the
of give
villain.
and take,
yeah, like he needs to do a heel turn.
Yeah, and it's just not at all happening. But he wants to be the coolest guy in every movie.
Yeah. Like Black Adam is his like, I'm playing a villain. It's like, you're not. I always think of like in the Fast and Furious movies how it's like Jason Statham seems to be the one who gets it. He understands like when you hear about all these feuds on set about Vin and The Rock, and it's like Jason Statham's hilarious and he's willing to.
It's because he's British.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a completely different cultural sensibility.
That's actually a really good a good point. Is that one is a culture of gassing yourself up, and one is a culture of like the sadder I can be, the funnier it is.
Well, there's
and also seeing the irony in things.
Yeah.
There's a great quote from Stephen Fry who talks about the difference in American and British comedy. It says there's a scene in Animal House where there's a guy playing the guitar and what's his name? John Belushi comes up. John Belushi. Yeah, John Belushi. Comes up to him, smashes the guitar, and looks like the hero. An American comic wants to be John Belushi. A British comic wants to be the guy playing the guitar.
Yeah.
Banshees of Inisherin. This is one we've all seen.
Whoa.
So you must have just watched this.
Oh, yeah, I just watched it. Yeah.
I watched this with my family.
Oh.
This was another surprisingly politics less, no politics to upset the family for a watch.
But was it an entirely confusing film for many of your family?
Why is that?
I just feel like there's a real
Because your family's stupid, AJ.
No, but it's just like this is not a straightforward movie to enjoy. I think there is elements of it that are very enjoyable on the surface, but in terms of the overall story of the film and what's actually happening, especially towards the end,
no, like my
gets
family can watch movies like that. It's just whether or not they have much to say about it afterwards.
Right, yeah. It's not inherently controversial, though. Yes.
Yeah.
I thought this was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I thought this was so good. This is might be Mark McDonagh's best film, which is a bold statement. When I love In Bruges and obviously Three Billboards was incredible, but this feels like the most Martin McDonagh film. Like this is his perfected his craft. I was disappointed when it first got announced and sort of first hearing about it. That's like, oh, he's doing this like period piece, because that immediately, and this is a me problem, but it's like it immediately gives me this barrier to liking it. But it's probably my favorite, what you would call like a period piece. And yeah, I mean, I just thought the script was incredible. The acting was amazing. Colin Farrell especially is just so good in this film. Well-deserved Golden Globe win the other day.
Yeah, there's so are you aware of the trilogy aspect to this film?
What do you mean?
So this film is the completion of the Inish trilogy. The first two are actually plays. Right. So Martin McDonagh, when he first started out, was a playwright, and he completed something like 7 or 9 plays in the course of about 6 years, and they all went to Broadway, and they were all like smash hits, and that's basically where he got the clout to do In Bruges and onwards from there. And then basically the first two Inish, so it was the something of Inishaldu, and then so basically you had place names that started with Inish, and it was the something of Inish something, and the first two also dealt with kind of like an interplay, all had like the common themes of like the time period in Ireland somewhere, with it was like village life within like a younger man and an older man, and like kind of tensions there. And he was either going to write this. He started writing this, but felt he couldn't keep writing it. So then he wrote In Bruges instead, because he was offered movies. And then he felt he was now able to, given the amount of time that had elapsed, 20 years since he had started writing it, that he now understood it more from the older man's perspective. Yeah. And so it's basically, this is all from a Vulture article that I read 2 days ago after watching it, which I fully recommend. Like, if you're interested, read the Vulture article, because it's really, really well written, and kind of describes what's going on behind the scenes of his whole writing career, and why this one movie is essentially like draws together everything good from his career and shows he's learned the lessons that he needed to learn from the failures of his career.
Yeah. The Cripple of Inishmaan in 1996 and the Lieutenant of Inishmore in 2001.
Yeah.
So the best way I think I could describe the experience watching this movie, especially if we're talking about Martin McDonagh and what I was expecting from him, is when it ended, I logged it as 4.5 stars on Letterboxd, and then 2 days later I went back and gave it 5 stars, because I thought it was really interesting, Richard, when you said like it's maybe his most Martin McDonagh film, because I kind of initially disagreed, because I actually like, if I think of like something like In Bruges, which is probably my favorite from his, and how like sharp and it almost feels like an action movie in a lot of places. It's very like explosive. I was kind of like hoping for something more cutting like that. And if In Bruges has like 100 of these moments, and that's what, makes it such a good movie, the Banshees of Inisherin has like one moment, and it's at the end, and it recontextualizes the whole movie. And that's sort of how I felt. It was like, initially I was like, this wasn't as Martin McDonagh as I wanted it to be, and then after ruminating on it, I was like, oh no, it was really Martin McDonagh. It's just, it's a single, does it make sense if I say it's a single idea, whereas In Bruges is several ideas? Does that resonate? And it's one that like, it takes form as the credits roll, and you sort of realize what you've watched and what you've seen. I loved it. I thought it was so good.
So good.
And that's just like, I think, the confidence to make one point as an artist. But to know that point is so important, and it's going to be so well told, and you're going to be able to communicate it with the amount of depth it deserves, that it seems simple, but then it just sits there. That's kind of what like they're saying is like, he could only have made this at this point in his career.
Right.
He couldn't be the young man kind of like playwright, de jour of Broadway. He had to wait until he was quiet enough to make this. And it's like, and it's like, what I loved about it was that it's this massively serious point, but it like holds itself out as this like off the wall kind of quirky jaunt of a like, well, what's going on? And then when he actually starts to cut off his fingers, you're just like, holy shit, this is a different movie. Like, it's just, and it just ends, and it's so devastating, but like, also warm. It's
That's fantastic. Also, do you know he's dating Phoebe Waller-Bridge?
Perfect.
What a talented
household. I didn't know that.
Perfect.
Yeah. They've been together for quite a few years. But one question I want to ask you, Jeremy, and this is the fun discussion I've had with people, because the person I saw it with and I disagreed on this, is that do you think that Colm, Brendan Gleeson's character, is talented?
No, but that doesn't matter. I don't think it matters whether or not he's talented. I think it matters. It starts to matter for him that he is spending his life on things that he thinks is worthwhile, regardless of whether or not they're ever going to be, seen as great art. It's like you lose 100% of the shots you don't take. Yeah.
Because the person I saw it with was saying that it's like, I think he was. We hear a bit of him play fiddle. We never hear like the Banshees of INISHERIN in full, the song that the film's named after, that wants to compose and be his great piece of art. But I sort of someone who's like good, not great. Maybe he's a good fiddle player, but he's not a great composer of music. And that it's this guy who's, feels trapped by his own mediocrity, feels trapped by just living in this shithole island in the middle of nowhere. And then one day wakes up and decides that to blame all of his failures on his friend. And that he's just this pseudo-intellectual dickhead who thinks that, and it's about like obviously depressed and stuff, that he is just projecting all of this onto Colin Farrell's character.
He wants an excuse to never be proved that he's not a good artist, so he blames his friend and cuts his fingers off.
Because the cutting his fingers off is like, I could have been the greatest artist of all time, but you stole that from me.
And you just wouldn't stop.
And then obviously the scene where he gets the century that Mozart lived in wrong felt like the smoking gun of this.
And I'll say, we'll probably talk about this a lot on the Oscars episode, so I'll save my fun observations. But what I liked about the ending and that last scene where they're staring out across at the mainland from the beach is like it's one of these beautifully poetic endings where it's like the whole movie. Colin Farrell's character just wants to spend time with his friend and is being rejected and rejected and rejected. And at the end of the movie, I interpret it anyway, as basically Colin Farrell saying like, you and I will do this forever because you wronged me. You slighted me so much that I will not stop till I've ruined your life. And Brendan Gleeson's character the whole time is like, whenever he's aggressive, whenever he's an asshole, I kind of like him more and I want him in my life more because it's interesting and it's explosive. And so the characters get what they want in the end because Brendan Gleeson gets a more interesting person to be the main figure in his life, and Colin Farrell gets to hang out with the guy that he wants to hang out with.
Yeah,
he just hates him.
He gets an antagonist in his life,
It's so brilliant. It's such and like the word banshee, I think, carries so much meaning here because it goes from being just it's the name of the song to this feeling of these ancient gods that rule this island that are in constant battle for eternity. Like that's why I think the sort of mythical quality that banshees as an idea, they're not exactly bad, although they are screaming. They're screaming at each other, right? So it's like they become the banshees of INISHERIN that will scream at each other for eternity because neither of them are willing to admit what they need in their lives.
Well, it's interesting because actually, I think one of the most brilliant things about the movie is that the worst things that are going on in the island are barely noticed or commented on. That this petty dispute between these two guys that is based on almost nothing and is entirely self-imposed and self-serving. They are like literally witnesses to and like in relationship with someone who is literally, has sexually abused his own child, is in a position of power as a policeman. No one's challenging that. They all know about it. They're ignoring it. You've got this like woman who's literally playing death, and she's the closest thing to a banshee in the movie. And she's kind of, foretelling doom and stuff. And they're all just going like, stop distracting me from what's really important here. And it's like and thinking about like the obvious allegory of the Irish Civil War and what's going on with Irish and what has happened in Irish history and all the things he's saying about that it's just so brilliant how multi-layered and how it absolutely works on every level that you want to dig in. And if you just want to see it as a buddy drama comedy, like, and interpersonal relationships, you can watch it at that. And then every layer you want to go down, you can get there. And it's just, it's the more you think about this movie, the more you talk about it, it warrants the conversation.
I will say that I don't know too much about like the Irish Civil War, but the only like negative review of this film I read was someone just being like, oh, the metaphor of the Civil War is just so fucking over the top. And so I was like, I get that if you know about it and this sort of thing of like you're saying about this really petty argument between two sides, and
that will just go on forever.
Will go on forever. There's so much worse things happening. I think that it probably is just, if you know a lot about that, you're like, this is super obvious. But to me, I was like, I assume this is what it's about, but I just don't know much.
Yeah.
AJ, you saw Wendell and Wild.
It's all right. I watched it a little bit stoned, so according to your guys' rules, I'm not allowed to talk about it. I don't know. I wasn't as moved by it as I...
That's only for Lindsay Lohan movies.
I wasn't as moved by it as I was hoping to be, and I think that might be a Henry Selick thing, the director.
It's just the Henry Selick style, buddy.
Yeah. I think... Yeah. I feel like it's a movie that, like, I love all the chess pieces on the board, but then the actual game is like... weird that you'd make it about this. Like, weird that you'd take the story in this direction.
Well, another stop-motion animated one, do you might have more to say about Del Toro's Pinocchio?
Yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it. I think that there is a lot of fun to be had in setting Pinocchio during, I think it's the rise of fascism before World War II or something like that. And, like, there's some great stuff in it. It's definitely more a movie...
There's lots of fun to be had in the rise of fascism.
There's lots of...
This is the third Guillermo del Toro movie about it, right?
I think this is a movie that is a lot more pleasing to look at than it is to necessarily follow the story or anything. And I'm sure there's going to be some diehards who hate that I've said that. But, like, I don't know. It's just the stop motion is, like, beautiful, and the character models, the literal models, are so... There's just something about them where every character is just so pleasant to look at and fun. And I liked that about it. What I will say, though, is I reckon, like, Jiminy Cricket, or he's called Sebastian in this, is, like, he's rendered such a pointless character in this movie, because he gets stuck with Geppetto, not Pinocchio, when Pinocchio goes missing. And it's like, well, Geppetto and the cricket are the same character if they're together, Like, there's no point in having, like, surely the cricket is Geppetto's presence in Pinocchio's life as he goes off on his own, because he's supposed to be his conscience, right? And in this it was just like, I don't know if it works if you just put these characters together.
But is that the point he's trying to make, though? Is that like without conscience?
No, it just feels like he renders the character pointless, basically.
Weird, the Al Yankovic story. This was one that I listening back to our Patreon sample pack, I felt a similar thing where I did with, like, Not Another Teen Movie, where I'm like, oh, this film's hilarious, and then I get to a point where I'm like, oh, I can probably just end now, can't it?
Yeah, I kind of wasn't that crazy about this.
It's very funny.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is at the start, like you just said. I don't know. I just think that it doesn't. It's because it's Funny or Die, and like a lot of Funny or Die movies, it's like this is a very limited plot scope that has been stretched out to an hour and a half. And again, similar to my take on Jackass Forever, my dog shit take on Weird, the Al Yankovic story is like, I kind of want to know what really happened. I maybe would have preferred if this was just genuinely a biopic about Weird Al Yankovic's life. I don't know if I appreciated the, like, left turns it takes, and they go to like Colombia, and he fights drug lords.
I didn't like that stuff.
It's just like you can embellish it and make it a bit silly, but at the end of the day, like, I kind of did want to know the actual rise to fame that happened, but it's a Funny or Die sketch, and it's just really long.
Yeah, it's like it is very funny, and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. We've already spoken about. You didn't see it, Jeremy?
I did not.
No, it's good.
I envy you,
Yeah,
Jeremy. You've ducked out of Marvel completely.
Yeah, I figured that you guys will always take the lion's share of Marvel anyway, so we're good.
Yeah.
Panthers.
Yeah, check out our thoughts on that. But it's probably the best Marvel film this year.
It's probably the best Marvel film of all time.
We're moving on. The Fabelmans. Jeremy, you just watched this afternoon. What a good film.
Man, the impression that I had just watching this movie is just of being in the safest possible hands of a filmmaker. That you just know that whatever he puts in front of you is just going to be so wholly made and conceived and delivered. And I was just like, I didn't know anything about it other than it was like kind of just a semi-autobiographical movie about Steven Spielberg's life. And I was like, yeah, I'll sign up for that because it's Steven Spielberg. But I didn't really have any expectations about what the story would be, how closely it would hew to. And I was just so drawn in to the story, the way it was told, the characterization. Michelle Williams, I normally am not a huge fan of, and she just
served cunt.
Wow. Okay. But like she blew me away. Like her performance is so. It's really interesting because she's playing this like she's obviously playing a housewife from the 1950s. She's riffing off of this kind of like the actresses of the day, like Bette Davis, who were these big, like broad characters, and somehow she gets away with it. Like she imbues it with humanity and meaning, and she's essentially like, in terms of what she does in the film, she's a bit of a villain, really, but I mean, I think the script, but also her performance, imbue her with a humanity that you can't help but empathize with. And I just think you empathize with everyone. Like it's so, I just don't really know how to describe why I liked it. It's just everything.
Yeah, I think AJ feels the same way. I didn't love Michelle Williams and Paul Dano on this film. I know that they're getting the lion's share of the praise for this film.
I don't think that they're the best.
Yeah,
I actually think that the kid.
I thought he was very good.
Hey, he's amazing.
I will say, a funny experience I had with this film is that I didn't watch the trailer till after I watched the film, and I was now having to review it for the news. And then I watched, so I was like, oh my god, this film's amazing. I've been telling people, oh my god, it was amazing. They're like, oh, really interesting. And then the day I was cutting my review for it, I watched the trailer and I was like, this film looks like shit.
It's such a funny trailer because it's like, witness the origins of Steven Spielberg. Watch as this harrowing tale of what it was like growing up Jewish in the 1950s and discovering his love of film. And Mum brought home a monkey? Oh, this I gotta see.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's I will say, and then
like no subtlety whatsoever.
It's just in the trailer, and it's like, what is this movie?
When the entire charm of this movie really is the subtlety of everything. Like everything's just so like perfectly underplayed. It's not overwrought. It's really good.
I think the opening 20 minutes of the film is what I feared the worst, and what, having watched the trailer, I would have thought was. When it's like this kid, with the train and everything like that, and I was like, yeah, this film is trite. This film is trash. This film is so self-indulgent. And then when it ages up, when there's a time jump, it's fucking amazing from then on. It's also, this is probably the funniest Spielberg's ever been, which is interesting because it's like, the most sort of realistic time in his life. And I saw an interview with him where he talks about how like, we didn't set out to make a funny film, but it's you reflecting on those sort of moments that you maybe wish at the time you wish didn't happen, and then looking back go, that's pretty funny. But there's like there's one right at the end when he's talking to like the bully, and he says, I will never tell anyone about this unless I grow up and make a film about it, which will never happen. And it's such a funny line that's like would be in this would make sense in the Weird Al Yankovic movie. But it's like, and then following on from that, the best scene of 2022 in John Ford's office is just a fucking phenomenal scene. David Lynch playing John Ford, and it's like I almost don't even know how to describe why it resonates with me so much, but this idea that, you know, meeting his hero and being like, what kind of advice can you give me on how to become a filmmaker? And all the advice you get is, if the horizon's at the top of the picture, it's interesting. If the horizon's at the bottom of the picture, it's interesting. If it's in the middle, it's boring as shit. Now get the fuck out of my office. That it's like, but just have that be this deeply, deeply profound moment in his life. Because I've seen Spielberg tell that story in interviews, like it's a true story. And yeah, but then that's just what becomes your life. And then the final shot of the film adjusting the horizon is like one of the best things I've seen in cinema.
All right. You ready for AJ's dog shit opinion on this movie? I thought it was fine. I really like the last scene, and I agree with everything you've said there, Richard. But like, I don't know. I don't know if I enjoy new Spielberg as much. I really didn't like West Side Story, and I only enjoyed this like marginally more than West Side Story. I think it's a weird plot for a movie, because I thought it was going to be about like him falling in love with film. It's more about Seth Rogen banging his mum, and it's like, oh, okay, I didn't know that this was the direction the story was going in. I don't know. I thought a lot of it I was sort of just waiting to get through it. And that might have been because of where and when I watched it, and I sort of just watched it in my lounge, and it was like, oh yeah, cool.
I will say on like what the film's about, I'm doing quotation marks there for you, AJ, that from Spielberg, this is what Spielberg said about it, that it's like there's a moment in everyone's life when they realize that their parents are just people. And he said sometimes, you know, you'll be 45 and your parents are 65 when that happens. And he says that for me it happened when I was 16, and this is that story.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Greatest filmmaker of the generation. I think that I also, as you said, I didn't mind Michelle Williams as much. I thought Paul Dano was terrible in this. Like, his performance it just doesn't sit right with me. It's a lot of him sitting there slack-jawed with his mouth like a perfect gaping circle.
He wasn't given a lot, to be fair.
And like, or he's doing like a, gee whiz, wow, oh, and I just didn't feel authentic at all. And maybe it is. And I'm the type of person who, when I don't resonate with a very popular movie, I go, okay, I'm wrong. So like, what I'm saying there is like, there is probably depth to this movie that I just haven't plumbed, you know, and maybe if I were to watch it again or watch a cool video essay on it or something like that, it probably would mean more to me. But I guess I should stop saying I didn't like movies and start saying something like, I need to watch it again. Or I
don't appreciate it.
Yeah, or I need to learn more about it.
I'm a big stupid idiot.
Yeah, or I'm a big fucking moron with a big head and a big butt, and I like to kiss my own butt.
I think what you described about Paul Dano, because I didn't like his performance really either, but I kind of think that's every Paul Dano performance is a little bit like what you described. I think that's what he was
just
like.
We've seen enough of him that we're just like, oh wait, you are just weird looking, and that's not an act.
That's like Paul Dano creeps me out as an actor. Everything I see him and I find him creepy. It's probably because of like Prisoners, but I mean, Leah, what you described, he's doing that as the Riddler. You know, when he's like, "Gee Willikers, as Batman," like,
the classic line from the Batman.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm on board fully with Paul Dano as an actor, but it's like an AJ thing where it's like I guess I'm wrong,
but I think he's perfect because the whole problem with the father character is that he's just like an earnest guy who's trying to do the best he can, and he's a wimp. Yeah, he knows it. It's okay. He's a genius, and like he is in awe of Michelle Williams' character. Because she's this like
free spirit
butterfly. And he just can't believe that he's able to hold her in his hands.
He's a gross caterpillar,
you know. And she resents.
She could never fall for a guy like him.
And well, apparently she did, because this is like, man, like I'm like glad Steven Spielberg's parents are both dead, because like yeesh. But
you're glad Steven Spielberg's parents are dead.
Well, like, I'm
Such
glad
a
they didn't
funny
see
thing
this
to
movie
say.
because it's pretty confronting.
Well, it's interesting because, like, he said he's been trying to get this movie made for like 20 years or something like that. That like this idea, and then his parents both died in like 2020 and 2021 or something.
Yeah.
And as soon as they like not even fucking dead and buried yet, and he's like, "Cool, greenlight the movie,
Release it."
Drop it.
But
I've got receipts.
My parents are dead. Drop it. Drop the movie.
It's interesting, AJ, because I think this is like one of the most true coming of age movies that I've ever seen, because you literally see the moment where he comes of age, like the moment that he's editing the film and he sees what's going on with his mother is like it's the loss of innocence, right? He's now no longer like the plucky kid who's like trying to impress people by making movies and being good at stuff. He's now like, I now carry adulthood, like I now carry adult responsibilities, and like, and then, you know, he goes through that stage of going like, I can't make stuff anymore, I can't make art anymore because it's not fun, you know, and then he realizes there's more reasons to make art than just fun. Like you've got, you know, you make it because you want to impress someone, you make it because it can make you money, you know, all this. So like, I just think I thought it was really cool showing how nuance comes into life as you get older and as you know, mature.
Yeah. Richard, what the hell are we going to talk about on the Oscars episode, dude? I feel like we've just had two very in-depth discussions about two of the frontrunners.
Yeah, maybe we'll, I don't know.
We got to find a new angle.
We'll just get Aaron's thoughts. You don't really need to talk about Spirited again, do you, Jeremy?
Absolutely not.
So she said this, I think in the most anticipated, I said, well, this will be like an obvious Oscar one. It's completely fallen out of the conversation. It's, the movies, it's this idea of like Hollywood being like, look what we did. Look how...
It's the Harvey Weinstein story,
it's the Harvey Weinstein story. Look how we got rid of him. Look how great we are. The idea of Hollywood telling that story makes you feel icky. Nothing in the film ever got rid of that feeling for me. And then I was like, do I just find the story so icky or whatever? So I read the book to be like, and the book is so much better. The book is just like, oh, this is a good recounting of facts. And I think that the movie, and maybe it's like, you know, something like All the President's Men I might be more interested in because it's similar story, even Spotlight, that it's like, I didn't know that much about those stories. Whereas I feel like this story, just because I found it interesting and like I'm interested in movies. So the Harvey Weinstein scandal was one that I followed more closely and I lived through it as well. That I was like, well, yeah, this is just the information you got given. But I think that certain people will resonate with, obviously. And I think the most interesting thing about it was that this was just two working mothers who took this guy down.
It's also interesting, I think, like if you think about if Bombshell was a docuseries that was made by Fox, like you'd kind of probably have that same ick factor of just like, oh, you're a bit too close to this to be able to make the defining thing of this.
And it is like, what's the answer? Like, do we just never tell this story in Hollywood, or does it need to be like, even if it was a TV series, I'd probably feel better about it. But this was one of the only junkets that I've like been bumped from this year that I like, they said, oh, you might be able to do this, and then I ended up not being able to. And it was like, I felt this responsibility to ask that question, to be like, what's the answer to this? I didn't get to ask it. And on the like sort of generic answers that you are given as like part of the press kit, it wasn't in there because they didn't want to advertise people asking that question. So yeah, interesting. The Menu, this was a film I just, a lot of people are just stumbling across this. When I came back from my holiday, people would say, oh, have you seen? And I would go, The Menu? And they go, yeah, how did you know? Oh, the other film I watched is Glass Onion. Yeah, how did you know that? It's like everyone wants to talk to me about these two movies that they just stumbled across. Yeah, now The Menu is good fun. The less you know about it, the better. Just go and have a good time. Bones and All, Luca Guadagnino, who did Call Me By Your Name, which is one of my favorite films, reteaming with Timothée Chalamet. Bones and All, it's a lot more like full frontal with the cannibalism than I thought it was going to be. It's a cannibal love story, and
it didn't star Armie Hammer. I mean, come on, if you're going to reteam with someone,
it's the second time playing against a cannibal. Only this time they're pretending to be a cannibal.
I think Armie Hammer might have been pretending as well. This makes it.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it's a good film. It blends the genre as well, because it's like a road movie, coming of age movie, romance movie, and a cannibal horror, and it sort of does all of them quite well.
Nice.
Mark Rylance specifically is really creepy in it. Also, he was really good in a film called The Phantom of the Open, which I didn't write down, but that was a good movie that came out this year. Strange World. This is a hard one to talk about because it's pretty unnotable, right, AJ?
I say we don't talk about it for that long and just say my opinion on it is probably about the same as the average opinion on it. I thought it was okay and not great.
Is this the animated one that Apple keeps telling me to watch because I have children?
It wouldn't be Apple. It's Disney.
Oh, sure.
Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Disney's flagship animation film this year, but just no one saw it. Apparently it wasn't advertised very well, but I mean, AJ and I went to go see it together.
It's the most. Here's a nice thing to say about it. It's the most authentic and organic a gay character has ever been written into a Disney kids film, I think.
Yeah.
So good on them for that, I guess.
And then they don't promote it at all.
Yeah.
Good on you, Disney.
Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery.
So, I would like to lead a discussion on this. So this is currently my number one of the year. I saw it during the week it was playing in cinemas. I managed to get along to it. Absolutely loved it. I love it enough that I don't know if I prefer it to Knives Out or not, which is a cool place to be, I think, because I loved Knives Out. I think, upon reflection, I think maybe the story and the location is more interesting, but I wonder if the characters in Knives Out are more compelling. And so that's sort of where I'm sitting on it. But one thing I want to say, I have this memory of, I don't know if this was on a disappointing episode. It probably was, but I remember when we were talking about the first Knives Out, and Jeremy, one of the things that you talked about was how you thought that it was a mistake for Daniel Craig to be doing this accent, and it's terrible, and while it's a fun film, he's not pulling it off, and etc., etc., and you wondered. I remember on our episode we did on dead actors who'd be perfect for roles that came out after their deaths, you said Philip Seymour Hoffman would have been a better Benoit Blanc. He's nodding, everyone. Great job, Jeremy. Nod.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
And
sorry, it's just that you're talking directly to me rather than.
I think that with the sort of the big the chokehold that Glass Onion has on the zeitgeist at the moment, I think this justifies Daniel Craig's crazy decision to do that accent, because I think that this character he's playing now has, with the addition of this movie, I think it's become way more iconic, and I couldn't see it being any other way now. And I think the cartooniness of it is going to become like a pop cultural touchstone, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
dress up as them and do the voice.
In Glass Onion, it moved to camp.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas I think the first movie was a lot more like down. The first movie was more like down the line. How am I trying to say this? It was like, it was self-knowing, but it wasn't camp. Glass Onion is camp as all hell.
Yeah,
like
cool.
Glass Onion is Kate Hudson.
Yeah.
You know, whereas Ana de Armas is like the id of Knives Out. Like, she's the audience surrogate who's like
Slipstream.
What?
Yeah, she's the slipstream.
And I think that Knives Out is just an altogether more kind of serious film. It's very funny and it's very satirical, and it makes really good. Whereas Glass Onion is just like
the apotheosis.
Glass Onion is Knives Out gone on a Greek holiday.
Yeah.
You know, and they sort of all bets are off. It's less tightly wound, and it's just more camp. And I think that Benoit Blanc. Benoit Blanc. I think Benoit Blanc is altogether more camp, and you know, that has nothing to do with the fact that he's revealed to be in a relationship with Hugh Grant. Like, I just think in his whole characterization, and so I would say that
an ascot.
Yeah, I'd say you're right. Like, I think the accent fits him better. It doesn't.
Right. Nice.
It doesn't seem like an artifact in this movie. It just seems like he's sort of wearing the skin a lot more comfortably.
Yeah, and this is how iconic characters are made, I think. And I think, you know, there are going to be a dozen Knives Out mysteries at least, right? And I think that we're going to just enjoy that over and over again. I think it's going to become potentially quite an important character in in 20 years we'll look back and consider him like probably more important than his run as James Bond, to be honest. I love this. I love it's a movie where the first sort of before the big upset in the narrative, I was like, what is going on here? Like, I'm not sure if I'm on board. I'm not sure where this is going. And then the time, what it sort of does a flashback and et cetera, et cetera. As soon as that started happening, I was like, this is the movie. Right, sorry, yes, of course. Of course, like, this sort of plodding was setting up. Of course. And I really loved it. I loved the ending. I thought that the imagery of someone smashing all these glass sculptures is like such a beautiful example of rebellion. Like, it's kind of meaningless, and Miles Bron doesn't really care that she's doing it at first, and I kind of loved it. It felt like you were airing your frustrations out. I love the whole Mona Lisa thing. I think that's a brilliant thing to set up at the start, and then I thought that was great. And the craziest thing for me is I saw this movie maybe a week after Elon Musk bought Twitter. And it was like, as soon as it starts becoming clear what the social commentary is, I was like, holy shit. Brian Johnson, you have lucked out, bro. Because he's gone on to say, like, it was more of a Mark Zuckerberg pastiche.
Yeah.
But it's like, he doesn't get to say that now, because it's like...
It just drops into this cultural moment perfectly.
Yeah, and I think it's so brilliant. I think it is so funny. I think that Edward Norton, we talked about this recently, Richard, that I think Edward Norton is so good in it, because it's like Edward Norton's okay with playing like a guy that doesn't know he's an idiot. Like, that feels eerily close to the bone for what I know of. Not that he's an idiot necessarily, but that he's a bit of an asshole. And like, I don't know. I just think everyone's so great in it. And yeah, I'm running out of steam because we've been talking for 4 hours, but really loved this film.
I do think with it's fantastic, and Edward Norton's fantastic in it as well. But I do with the Edward Norton thing, I wonder if he's growing out of that maybe, and is more willing to accept these kind of fun roles where he makes fun of himself a little bit. But yeah, we can move on. Matilda, the musical. Also,
I would just say, like, I definitely like Knives Out better than Glass Onion.
Walking out of the cinema, I was like, Glass Onion's better. Now I'm not so sure. I think that someone mentioned that it was like, I saw online that someone said like just how cozy Knives Out is.
Well, because Knives Out is, I think, has a lot more discipline as a film.
Yeah, right.
So you really feel how incredible the mystery and how intricate and detailed everything is. Whereas in Glass Onion, it's a completely different film. Like, it's not like Glass Onion isn't actually a murder mystery, like in that sense. It's really the I saw someone talking about the fact that it's actually like the big mystery of Glass Onion is essentially how the Chekhov's gun of the Mona Lisa like override switch is going to get used. Like, and
I don't know. I think that's a disingenuous take on it.
No, but like that's the ultimate reveal at the end of the film is actually like what ends up happening there, and and I think it's perfectly used and it's wonderful. I really love it. So I'm not using that as a critique of like I think this makes it terrible.
Just on like the thing of it, Glass Onion not being a murder mystery, but Knives Out was the actual thing that I thought Knives Out was an almost perfect film, and I thought AJ was overhyping it to hurt my feelings. Is that the thing that put me off of Knives Out at first is that it wasn't a murder mystery. We're told very early on, he killed himself, and then everything else, and then I was like, well, and so I don't know, I felt like betrayed that we knew that so early, and that was the thing that then just for the rest of Knives Out, I was kind of thinking like, am I okay with that? And then I need to watch it again. I only saw it once.
Finding out at the end that actually there was someone who was trying to murder him was brilliant. Like that's what made it so great, is that it like double bluffed you.
But it was that bluff in the middle that I just never quite got my head around how I felt about it. And I think watching it again would help. But I think we're very long recording session. We've recorded this all in one session just for the record.
I haven't had dinner and it's 11:30 in the evening.
One of the longest recording sessions I think we've ever done, other than Rocky. But Matilda, the musical version, you saw that, Jeremy?
Yes. Woefully misjudged tone.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
is that a thing of the musical, or is this in the adaptation?
It's of the whole thing. So I love the book, loved it since I was a kid, loved the original movie from the 90s, love the musical.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is my jam. Like, I love all of the source material for this. A couple of massive problems. They cast so in the stage show, they always cast a man playing Trunchbull, and it gets the Roald Dahl tone of it right, because you get the kind of like hulking physicality and the sort of threat of a man playing a woman, but you also get the inherent silliness of the pantomime aspect of like the pantomime history of a man playing a woman on stage. And so the Trunchbull is both intimidating and grotesque by just the characterization of it being a man playing a woman, but then also inherently silly.
Yeah.
And in casting Emma Thompson to play it, I think she's so aware of the fact that normally this role's played by a man that she kind of has to like really amp up kind of the threat of her as an actress.
Because it was Ralph Fiennes originally was cast, and then I actually think it was kind of part of the George Floyd like white people shouldn't play people of color. They're like, all these castings were being looked at that I think just quietly they recast it with.
Yeah, and so I think that's where like the art kind of suffers due to this, because she, I think, then feels like she has to play up the threat of Trunchbull. So it actually becomes kind of a horror movie. Rather than there being an inherent silliness, which is Roald Dahl always manages to tread the line between true awfulness and somehow making it seem charming and funny as well. And that's why children love Roald Dahl so much, because it's a bit magic. And so because of that, I think the movie really suffers. Matilda is also cast really poorly. She's an amazing singer and actress, but I think she, just in the way that she looks, she has quite a mournful, sad look to her face. And Matilda is very joyful. She's a genius and she's amazing, and they really play up the genius and amazing part. But also Matilda is meant to be a very happy, joyful child, and that's what makes it okay that she's suffering all these problems. And so without that inherent joy, you just get a movie where you're like, this child is being literally abused by all of the adults in her life, and she has to save herself. And that feels awful. So yeah, Matilda, like some of the big musical numbers were done beautifully and really well. All the children were incredible. There's a kid wearing a terrible fat suit, so if they're going to cast authentically, they should have actually cast a fat kid. But other than that, I didn't like it.
All right, this is going to be the last big conversation. Avatar: The Way of Water. We thought it would never come out. It did come out. You know what? I thought it was fucking great.
Yeah, I liked it. I let myself get into it because it was after all the discussion and discourse over the last 10 years, or however long it's been, like, it really feels like there was a camp of people who wanted to hate this movie. And as far back as, like, the Disney acquisition of Star Wars, I remember being like, I don't want to hate hype movies coming out, so I decided like I was gonna get on Avatar's wavelength, and I really liked it. I think it's thank you. I really liked it. I think I have a couple of issues with it, but overall, I thought it was incredible. I thought that Sigourney Weaver playing a teenager was great. I didn't realize it was her for so long, and I was like, which character is Sigourney Weaver playing in this again? And then as the movie went on, I was like, it's the 14-year-old.
Oh, it's the one who sounds like Sigourney Weaver.
Well, I didn't really notice that, I guess. But I really liked it. I think one interesting thing about it is that I think this is what happens when a movie is in production since before all the casting authentically stuff we were just talking about. And so that's how someone like Kate Winslet can end up playing the face tattooed
tribal leader.
The wife of the chief. It was like, I don't think that would happen now, and I think it would be very wise.
But it is also funny that it's like, well, these tribes aren't real.
No, but they're heavily based. They're borrowing so much.
And he's literally said, "I based this tribe off of the Maori people."
And Cliff Curtis.
He told me something different when I spoke to him. True story. It's not based specifically, but it's Pacific cultures. Not
Sure,
just
but none of them white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cliff
Yeah, but if I
Curtis
just
is-
let you say that, Jeremy, I wouldn't have pointed out that I spoke to James Cameron.
Yeah. This is the first time you've ever been able to flex. Well, when I talked to the
The director.
the director of two of the highest grossing films of all time.
and Cliff Curtis plays the chief. So
The other one, yeah.
it's already like, well, you clearly you had some thought when you did this, and I think it would be wise to recast that character. I guess they probably already filmed it, but like it just feels like a standard from a different time. Because even like Avatar, where it's like the main character is in a wheelchair, feels like maybe you should have cast an actor who actually is in a wheelchair. So yeah, I thought that was a funny observation about it, and I know the critiques I've heard that I've agreed with are about how like
the thing about Avatar is like I have my like minor quibbles with it, but it's one of those things that it's like I'm trying to find the right like metaphor for it, but it's like well, simile, I guess, that it's like, you know, you go on like an incredible holiday, and it's like, oh, you know, like how was it? And it's like, oh my god, it was fantastic, the whole thing. And they go, yeah, but remember that time you had to wait in that really long line? And it's like, yeah, but like the whole holiday was incredible. I don't like care about that. You're like, all of my quibbles with this film are so minor that I'm like, the rest of the film was just so spectacular. And it was like, I didn't think that I was like a spectacle person. I didn't think that I could go to a movie that like this and just be wowed by the spectacle, because like I am so not precious about seeing films on the big screen or seeing it on the biggest screen possible, other than for the fact that it forces me to pay attention to it.
yeah.
But yeah, with this, I was like, yeah, I'm so glad I saw this. I mean, I saw it in IMAX, and I hate the IMAX cinema in Auckland, but I'm glad I saw it on a big screen. And, you know, there's a lot of talk about all this culture and like the way James Cameron tells these stories, but it's like, I feel like for so long it's been like, well, let's not just talk about James Cameron as a great action filmmaker. And then now I'm like, no, like let's talk about him as an action filmmaker, because he's fucking amazing at it.
Yeah.
I thought that the when the final act started and it's this incredible like ongoing action scene, I thought to myself as it started, I was like, oh, where has this been for the whole movie? Like, this is what I felt the whole movie was missing. And then that final act is 80 minutes long. So I was like, well, I guess I did get a full movie of what I wanted in the end.
Yeah. I did not. I guess I don't have the same glow around this movie as you guys. I went into it being like, hey, he totally blew me away with Avatar. I am ready. Like I did not come into this movie cynical or like wanting to not enjoy it. I was like, yep, put my 3D glasses on, let's go. It's just silly things in this film that I feel
There's
are
silly-
like
these
That's
blue
so
people.
stupid.
no, but like
Silly. It's not real.
there's a moment where the whale gets subtitles and it says "I hurt," and I'm just like, no, you didn't need to do that. And it's like, for me, that's kind of like, that's the sin of James Cameron, is that he doesn't get when it's a bit much, you know.
Yeah,
and
you need like the cosine of James Cameron. Sorry, that was a maths joke. He said it was the sun, like this.
oh right,
The
wow,
cos or the tan.
I mean the tan and yeah.
We've been
Oh my
recording too
gosh.
long for this joke, Richard.
Seriously, I'm not picking that up. But I just like the family dynamic annoyed me. The fact that you've got like this trope of like the older brother who's perfect and then the younger brother who's like the trouble child. But like literally that like everything that goes wrong with the family in the movie is the fault of that one brother. It's just
He's
like,
the
Oh man,
fucker.
I thought the kids were probably the strongest part of the film, except for
no.
Like
I mean,
Spider?
except for
I
Spider. I
liked
thought Spider sucked and shouldn't have been.
Oh
in the
my
movie.
gosh! But this is the thing: like Spider exists in this movie, and you're like, why?
Yeah.
Why is he here?
Yeah,
Like,
it felt like they were very confused about what they were trying to
well,
do.
he's a
with that.
plot device to set up the next, like, because there needs to be 3 more movies or whatever.
But it feels like they either needed to do him and Quaritch. Is that his name? The villain?
Quaritch.
They either like bond unexpectedly or they don't bond at all. And it felt like they were trying to do both at the same time.
and yeah, and it tries to have it both ways.
Yeah.
And I just too much time was spent with some of the characters. Like, I just felt like the teenage kid who's a fuck up. Like, we spent too much time with him. I was annoyed by him. The whole relationship with the whale, because the whale could talk back to him and somehow he could understand.
Genuinely,
I thought that was the best part of the film. I thought,
oh honestly, my gosh,
so did I.
Seriously annoyed
so
me.
Gorgeous.
Moved me, Jeremy.
The thing I really loved the mystery of Sigourney Weaver's character and how she was basically like
that.
You just
worst part of the film. I thought it was trite.
You get like for whatever reason, and she's this new evolution of an organism that's like more in connection with the rest of the world and the rest of nature than everyone else, and like that is something I'm like, oh, that makes me want to watch the next movie because I want to see what they're going to do with that. Like, so I'm on board for big chunks of this. It's just that like, and also the fact that like the final set piece is like one boat. You know, like we've just got to like defeat the people on this one boat. And I'm like, no, you don't. There's a whole human settlement that like you can win this battle, but like you're nowhere near winning the war. Like,
oof, that's deep. Did you just come up with it?
I just and then like the Titanic of it all with the sinking ship, and I don't know. I felt cynical about it. And I didn't want to feel cynical about it.
Well, then you shouldn't have.
Well,
yeah, why'd you do that, idiot?
I can't control my feelings. Yeah. And then the wrong brother dies. It was just
wrong
annoying.
Kid, Dad.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, any final thoughts on Avatar? Anyone else want to get anything out?
Wrong kid died.
And we took a little break from recording, and I explained the context of that to Jeremy.
I've never seen Walk Hard.
So, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. AJ and you and I just recorded a Patreon episode about this. This was the opposite of disappointing for me. This was my biggest shock of the year. This is, oh my god, what a fucking incredible film. And this was like, I feel like I felt such a personal kinship to this film to be like, I need to spread the word that this is the greatest film of the year. And it's, while I am starting to get sick of memes about it, I feel so, because I got to see this film quite early, that it's like, I feel so justified that like the rest of the world has latched onto it in the same way I did.
It's your second one this year after Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
Exactly.
Oh, it took the world by storm, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
Hey, look, every woman I know over the age of 50 has gone to see Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
Because of me. That's pretty much the year. I will just want to mention that a few films that if you're like, why didn't they talk about this? They're not out in New Zealand. Oh, AJ, I did want to actually give you After Sun played at the New Zealand International Film Festival earlier in the year.
Oh, sorry.
You just watched it, made you a better person.
Yeah.
I want you to have your opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, I watched After Sun 2 days ago. This was phenomenal. Like, this is like, I was looking at my top 6 films of the year, and with the, maybe not Skinamarink, which is also on this list, it's
a 2023 film.
Well, it's listed as 2022 everywhere else, so I consider it a 2022. But that's not necessarily vying for first place. But my top 5 are like After Sun, Banshees of Inisherin, Nope, Glass Onion, and I guess one that I'm forgetting, which should tell me that it doesn't need to be there, I guess, if I'm forgetting it. Triangle of Sadness is my 5th place. I'll happily leave that in 5th place. But the Banshees of Inisherin, Nope, and Glass Onion, I loved all so much, but in such different ways. And I'm looking at After Sun, and I'm like, is this my favorite movie of the year? But it's like activating a completely different part of my brain to Glass Onion, that it would be ludicrous to compare the two. But anyway, After Sun is incredible. I highly recommend it. It's a very slow burn, and a lot of the way I've sort of described it to people is like a lot of the story is told in between the story, if that makes sense. A lot of it's not really like, a lot of it's left up to implication or to like stuff that's in between the shots, and it's so expertly told and such a like enormously incredible film, and I highly recommend it. And also Paul Mescal is going to be a household name in a year or so get in on the ground floor.
But yeah, just films that you might be like wondering, oh, they left that out, aren't out in New Zealand yet, is Babylon, Women Talking, The Whale, Empire of Light, and Tar.
Thankfully, some of these are going to get nominated for Oscars, so we'll have something to talk about.
Yeah, I would say Woman Talking and Tar. I saw Tar the other day. I would say about it that it's like a lot of the story of it is kind of told between the scenes. You know, like it's a lot about.
That's a stupid thing to say.
But yeah, anything interesting about those films we'll talk about. For the Oscar season. So that is 2022.
What do we reckon? What's the most disappointing film? Is that what we're doing?
I don't know. What's the most Gemma film? Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. I would say I kind of think my most disappointing is The Bubble.
What was?
I would say Matilda's my most disappointing.
Okay, well, what was it? What's in everyone's first place? I guess that's probably more important.
Scream and Puss in Boots.
Nice. I'm Glass Onion currently, but that might change to After Sun depending on how I feel tomorrow.
I think it's either for me, The Fabelmans or Banshees of Inisherin.
Nice. Well,
I think I forgot to talk about Ticket to Paradise. That sucked.
Okay, well, glad you brought it up. Thank you for listening, everybody, to our yearly wrap-up. Let us know what you thought sucked about 2022 movie-wise. I don't want to hear about your own personal problems, okay? It's not that.
I don't want to hear about the Queen dying.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider following us on Instagram and Twitter, and you can also join our Discord, which there'll be a link to in the show notes, and you can come and talk to us. And if you would like to donate, head along to patreon.com/Popture, where you can give us all sorts of money and get us to talk about all sorts of things, including the post-credit scenes, which are coming at you after this music you're hearing now comes to a close. We will be back next week with the most anticipated films. I don't know what we're calling these episodes anymore. I guess we'll find out along the way. That's part of the magic of cinema, I think. It's working out how you want to package your feelings about them. So tune in for that. And thank you so much for listening. This has been exhausting. And we'll see you next week. Welcome along to the post-credits scene. This is a segment at the end of each episode. Review, donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/Popture. You get to give us something to talk about in this, the post-credits scene. Richard and Jeremy, who is it from and what is it?
This one comes to us from Dylan Hutton, and I think this will be a pretty easy answer for all of us because we just spoke about it. Which franchise should go on forever?
We just spoke about it?
AJ, I've been recording for 5 hours almost. Which movie franchise should go on forever with infinite sequels? Knives Out.
Knives Out.
But with the same creative team. Like, has to be Ryan Johnson, has to be Daniel Craig.
Fargo, the TV show. I don't like that season 5 has been announced as the final season. Just don't announce a final season. It's such an anthology series, you can just keep making them. That's my answer.
I'm going to say Fast and Furious because I think that the longer it goes on, the more ridiculous it will get. And
how much more ridiculous can you get?
Exactly. No, I want to see how much more ridiculous.
Turn around. It'll start getting really sincere.
Well,
Fast
and
and Furious
have to
38 will be nominated for an Oscar.
They'll have to do like the James Bond of it all, when someone's going to have to like take it back to its like most gritty roots. And yeah,
DVD players.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other ones that I would actually like. Because I mean, even the MCU, if you said this is going to go on forever with infinite sequels, to me, I think, God, that sounds tiring. But like, yeah, something like Knives Out, I'm like, fuck yes. Even though AJ hurt my feelings with the first one.
And I'll do it again. You wait till the third one comes out. I'll ruin your fucking life, dude.